This Halloween, Shudder invites you to experience the 6 spookiest, ookiest stories that will make you laugh until you scream. It's a spooktacular anthology the whole family can enjoy.
You creepy little freak! I hope you die! It's gonna kill me!
Shivers creeping and crawling down your spine. That's that touch of mine. I won't tell no lie. Trick or treat!
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the latest episode of Fresh Cuts. This is Mike, and joining me as always, it's Mr. Venom. What's up, Venom?
Greetings and salutations, adult trick-or-treaters. And yes, you can count me among those numbers because I don't care. I love candy and I love bothering people at their homes. So Halloween is just the the perfect storm. How you doing, Mike?
I am doing well, just a little exhausted. I just got done with the 4-day Aftershock Festival, so I got in late last night, had to watch about like an hour, hour and a half of the movie, then finish it up today because I was pretty much running on fumes, just energy wise, but also just with my free time ever since Thursday. So I'm pretty much back to a normal schedule starting today, just beating the exhaustion away the best I can.
I'm
uh,
exhausted for another reason, as I am now battling COVID for the fourth time. Yes, somehow in 2020 fucking five, I got COVID again. So here we are. So please excuse my coughing throughout the episode, folks. I'll try to mute whenever I can.
all right. Well, also with us, it's Don and Ellie. How you doing, Don?
Yeah, doing good. Always happy to be here.
Don's like, I got nothing bad to report, so it's all
Well, I
good.
mean, I've never had COVID. This is a fantastic film, and I've got a special saying that I think I'm going to bust out for a first time here. So, yeah, I've got no real complaints.
Cool, cool. All right. Well, with that said, let's get into our movie. So, I think sometime after our last episode and between my week was done with work, there was like a handful of releases between the theater,
Mhm.
VOD. Um, I think Venom, you made it out to see something in the theater. I had no time to go to the theater, so I just kind of got lucked out that this week had a new Shutter release, and when we say Shutter, Shutter's actually a part of this, not just distribution. And that would be VHS Halloween. Yes, the franchise is back. It's what is this, the sixth installment or fifth?
Seventh or eighth, I think.
Seventh
Seventh?
or eighth, yeah.
Holy
Oh yeah.
shit. Okay, I'm
Okay,
even off.
so let's see. Virus is 3,
Yep.
then 94, 99,
99 and beyond.
85,
Oh,
Beyonds. Yeah.
Yep.
okay, yeah. Wow.
Everybody forgets 85 because it was so terrible.
I didn't mind it, but it's on the lower end for sure.
Wait, is it 85 or 99 that I hated? It's one of those two. I can't remember
99
which
is
one.
the one that only had the one good segment, the one with the people that disappear into the netherworld from the cult's ritual.
Maybe it's that one. I can't remember.
I
Oh, I don't know. That's the only one I like in 94 or
Gotcha.
99.
I kind of feel
Hmm.
like this franchise, it's almost ripe for like a retrospective, like on a show. I was talking to the 22 Shots guys, and I was like, you guys should do that for October because they do franchise retros and they haven't done it. And with the new one coming out for
Mhm.
Halloween, it seems like good. I know it'd be a lot to undertake for us only because we tend to stick to like just a couple movies because we're not trying to do 6 hour episodes. But just as a concept, I think the franchise, I mean, there's plenty of entries to like justify it now. But and I some of them, it's like I remember segments from all of them, but there's also ones I've probably forgotten. So like just for the sake of revisiting, even maybe just for some October watches, maybe I might look into using the franchise to knock out like a week's worth of watches, you know. But anyways, let's talk about this installment of VHS Halloween. The synopsis off IMDb: a collection of Halloween-themed videotapes unleashes a series of twisted blood-soaked tales, turning trick or treat into a struggle for survival. So yes, VHS Halloween. I do think one of the strengths of this, before I kick it to Venom, just I'll say up front, I do appreciate that they really did go for a Halloween theme on it. It's not just because it's being released in October, but they made it a point for, I think, most every segment on here to make it apparent that Halloween is the theme. So, Venom, general thoughts, VHS Halloween.
General thoughts. VHS Halloween hates kids. There, that's my general thought. No. Honestly, Don made a statement that I'm actually going to steal from him, and I 100% agree with it. This is the most consistently good VHS entry I think we've ever had. Obviously, we reviewed the last 4 or 5 VHS entries on this show. And I always talk about 94 and how much I absolutely adore 94. But even 94 had that maybe slightly weaker segment at the end with the vampire and the conservative group that, maybe that was a little bit, I still enjoyed it, but I wouldn't go so far as to call it great. Well, friends, I gotta say, VHS Halloween is fucking great. Every goddamn segment in this is enjoyable in some way or another. Now, obviously, since this has been released, there's been a little bit of controversy that I've seen on social media with a certain segment on this. Of course, I am talking about Kid Print. If you know anything about this movie or anything about some of the talk on social media over the weekend, you know that Kid Print is kind of the topic of the community right now. And I gotta say, man, as much as I loved this segment, it might even be a little too gratuitous for me. Like, I have never felt uncomfortable from a VHS segment. This segment made me feel uncomfortable, and I'm not a parent. I could imagine Mike watching this segment. This was a rough one. Rough in the best possible ways, admittedly, for gorehounds and people who actually like disturbing cinema. That is going to be the highlight of this entry of the VHS franchise, is that Kid Print segment. I'm not going to get into any necessarily descriptions of any of the segments. Like I said, I'm just going to keep it very general here. One thing that is actually bothering me a little bit about the VHS franchise is that the wraparounds aren't really wraparounds anymore. They're just their own segments that are cut up into pieces. Like the wraparound in this entry is not a wraparound in any way, shape, or form. It is literally just another VHS segment that we return to periodically. So by definition, it's a wraparound, but it really does nothing to tie the segments together. Or it doesn't even have a Halloween theme, in all honesty. It's the one segment.
It kind of does. The entire purpose of everything is to get it onto the shelves by Halloween. It's not.
Yeah, that's a minor. I understand what you're saying. Yeah, and I'm not going to disagree, but it's a little bit of a reach for me. Because the rest of the segments are so. The Halloween DNA is just all over all the other segments, whether it's kids trick-or-treating, older kids going to Halloween parties, and even that segment Kid Print maybe has the least, not counting the wraparound, probably has the least Halloween aesthetic to it. Yes, it takes place during Halloween. Yes, we show some kids trick-or-treating in a park because of something that's going on in that community. But overall, it's not like the killer in that segment only killed on Halloween or anything like that, or at least that's not what seemed to be implied. But despite that, like I said, the wraparound, I still enjoyed the wraparound. The wraparound has a great, almost Lovecraftian feel to it, science run amok, things like that. I'm not disparaging the segment so much as I'm saying it's not a true wraparound. And I'm the kind of guy that likes wraparounds. I really do. I love horror anthologies. And when we have a legitimate wrap, I love that. Think the Mortuary Collection, think Creepshow 2, horror anthologies like that have just these beautiful return to the wraparound, and then it kind of introduces the next segment. Like that's kind of what I like. Now, I'm not going to disparage VHS Halloween because every goddamn segment here is enjoyable in some way, shape, or form. It's either funny, it's either, incredibly over the top, or it's disturbing, or it, has some great creature, whatever the case may be. Every segment here works for me. Fun Size is an incredibly fun little, like, almost like a fun house gone wrong type segment that I thought was really cool. Home Haunt, with the final segment of our movie, has this great final 5 minutes that totally blew me away. Coochie Coochie Coo kind of has that feel of the dog segment from VHS Beyond. If you guys remember that segment where the woman was, kidnapping people and turning them into dogs. Well, Coochie Coochie Coo kind of does the same thing. And if the title doesn't imply to you what it's doing, then I'm not going to spoil it right now. And then, my friends, the master Paco Plaza has a segment here, and it is fucking spectacular. I describe it as the Black Phone meets Talk to Me. It has all the best parts of both of those movies, and I fucking love it. And of course, it's in Spanish, as Paco Plaza is from Spain. But yeah, goddamn. Man, what else can I say without really spoiling too much? I mean, I'm gonna say this is without a doubt a top three entry in this franchise, and I might have to go back and rewatch my two favorites, which are VHS 94 and VHS 2, and then compare them to this one. Because when VHS Beyond came out last year, I actually did rewatch every VHS entry. I just didn't really want to do that this year. Plus, it doesn't really fit my theme of my October watches, so I just decided not to revisit any of them. And just goddamn. Another thing that blew me away is that the VHS franchise is not known for putting out two great entries in a row. It seems like they kind of have that Star Trek the movie thing going, where they put out one okay entry and then a great one, and then another okay entry and then a great one. Well, for me, folks, VHS Beyond was fucking great. It was the surprise to me, as I am not a sci-fi fan, and when they announced that it was going to be all sci-fi segments, I was actually a little down about it, but then absolutely loved almost every segment in that entry. And now here we are, the next entry, right back to it. Why did VHS wait so long to visit Halloween as a theme? Because goddamn, it is tailor-made for this franchise. And I actually hope they keep this trend going. It might get a little cliche and pedantic, but I would love to see VHS Christmas, VHS New Year's. I mean, give us all the holidays. Shit. I mean, if they're gonna come even close to the quality that we get on VHS Halloween, then I am absolutely down for it. So yeah, I'm gonna cut off my general thoughts there and just say, this, on rewatch of the rest of the franchise, this may end up being my favorite entry of the franchise. I can't quite say that yet, like I said, because of just how much I adore VHS 94 and VHS 2. But more than likely, but this is easily a top three entry. Like VHS Beyond was my number 3, and I think this one is head and shoulders above, especially for hardcore horror like gorehounds. I mean, VHS Halloween definitely trumps VHS Beyond. So I'm going to leave it at that and say, if you have a Shudder account or access to a Shudder account, this is a must watch, especially since it's October, it's the Halloween season. This is a must watch for genre fans. So I'm going to leave it at that and say, just please watch it. This is fucking great. Back to you, Mike.
All right. And just as quick as it is back to me, it's going right over to Dawn for your thoughts on VHS Halloween.
Yeah. I mean, I told Venom about that earlier on, and I'm also going to pretty much spoil what I said earlier in the introductions, where I said I had a special phrase ready for this film. I'm about ready to call this one VHS Fuck Them Kids. And yeah, I had an absolute blast with this. I also would probably put this at my favorites. I I don't know if I don't know where I stand on 94 and beyond, because 94, I love the main three segments. The fourth one's not that great, and the wraparound kind of sucks. Beyond had three amazing segments, two really good segments, and then one that wasn't all that good. But the wraparound was decent to okay, and it was tolerable for what it was. This one is pretty much five hits, an idea for a wraparound that I like, but I think the main problem with it is that, as Venom was alluding to earlier, as a wraparound, it doesn't really make much sense for it to be a wraparound because it doesn't really function as such. Um, we'll talk about that more later in spoilers when, I'm sure we go over each segment one by one, but I really can't find fault with much of the segments in here. Um, like I said, we'll probably touch on these more, but first segment, absolutely fantastic. Love the idea, love the concept of it, great imagery, fantastic resolution. I really enjoy it. Part two, solid idea, maybe gets a little wonky with why the couple are returning, but overall, I think the action is enough to overcome that, and the resolution is amazing. I think it's probably my favorite outcome out of everything. I absolutely love it. Third one is just absolutely cheesy fun. I had a blast with it, and I think the segment really serves maybe not necessarily the highlight of the show, but it's definitely one of the better ones I think that they've produced for the franchise as a whole. Fourth one is Kid Print, which we kind of discussed earlier, and I'm going to save thoughts for that on the full length walkthrough. Fifth one may be a bit of a stretch to call it, really good, but it's still serviceable and solid, and it has some of my favorite imagery in in the movie. So yeah, kind of a cheesy fun time, but I enjoy it for what it is. And then, yeah, I think the main issue is that the wraparound doesn't serve much purpose as a wraparound. But yeah, other than that, maybe my favorite. At the worst, it's maybe third. Like Venom said, I think it's the same two that I need to revisit. But yeah, this was a fantastic segment. I enjoyed every segment consistently, and overall, it's definitely worth a watch. Anthology fans, found footage fans, pretty much most of you out there are going to enjoy this in some form. So, yeah, until we get to the main segments as a whole, I guess back to you, Mike.
All right, maybe this is a rarity because we're going three for three. I absolutely love this one. It was fun from start to beginning. I do agree the wraparound doesn't feel super related to what we're seeing. Like it feels like it could almost be its own story. And I know sometimes that's how wraparounds work. That said, I still liked it. I still thought the wraparound was fun. I was just looking for maybe a little more integration into like our segments. But other than that, I mean, that would be like my very low on the list, like nitpick, which is a short list, which that might be the only thing on the list because otherwise, yeah, it was just fun that they really nailed the Halloween theme. Like, I think most of these revolve around like haunted houses or variations of going inside a haunted house or perceived haunted house. So that's really cool. I've grown up going to haunts, so that's fun. I think this one kind of returned to like being a little more gritty too, like the scale of the stories. It felt really logical that these were found footage style stories, if that makes sense. Like they didn't try to go too big. Um, it always kind of made sense why what would be going on was filmed. So that that takes care of that, because that's sometimes criticisms people just have in general of found footage, but I found it relevant to be having a camera on this one. And like, I don't have much to add because I think I'd just be repeating like the praise it's already been given. But the only thing I would say is like if we weren't doing this for fresh cuts, I almost feel like I would have wanted to save it closer to Halloween because of the Halloween theme. Like if it was VHS October, that'd be different, but it's like literally Halloween. So and this feels like a movie to actually watch like on or around Halloween, just because they really emphasize the Halloween aspect of it rather than just like kind of fall season.
Mhm.
Um, so I would say if anyone's listening to like general thoughts and they're not going to listen to the spoiler section because they haven't seen it and you're looking for like movies to watch around Halloween this year, I would say, yeah, go ahead and save it for like maybe like the week of when you're putting together like a playlist for Halloween week. Because I might rewatch it then anyway, even though we just did it for the show because that's how much I like it. I just think it's fun. It gets gory. It gets uncomfortable. It
Mhm.
gets disturbing. There's lots of carnage. It pretty much does everything that I've liked about specific segments of other VHS movies, and it just keeps it consistent in this. There's really no letdown throughout this whole movie.
Mhm.
Like I'll probably I'll probably always say that Safe Haven is my favorite segment just because it's so crazy to me. And it for some reason, after all the VHS movies that have come out, Safe Haven just always sticks in my head. When someone says VHS before they say like the subtitle, I always go to Safe Haven in my head of just like holy shit moments. But as a full movie, I this one has to be near the top. Like I wouldn't want to say number one yet because I'd have to rewatch a lot of them since there's so many now, but it's definitely as far as consistency, this has got to be near the top. It just never lulls. There's never like a bad segment where like, oh, the next one better make up for this. It's just good front to back. So I'll leave it at that for now. Back to you, Venom.
I'd say Safe Haven is probably my second favorite segment ever in VHS. I tend to lean towards Timu's segment from '94, The Subject. That segment to me was just beginning to end shit-eating grin on my face as I'm watching these, scientific creations just run amok. Oh God, I to this day I still can't stop harping about The Subject. Easily my favorite segment ever. But yeah, Safe Haven, a solid number two for me, absolutely. And like I said, or yeah, like I said earlier, this new entry of VHS is easily the most. There goes my phone again. Sorry, folks. Is easily one of just the most consistently solid entries. I mean, there is not one bad segment here, be it the wraparound, first, last segment, whatever the case may be. I'm actually very happy with the last segment that they ended with that one in particular, because it's probably the most fun segment in here. And it actually ends with a pretty gnarly kill, too. So that's pretty fun. Yeah, man, I got a feeling that the three of us are just gonna pretty much blow this movie this entire episode because this was just top-notch filmmaking here. Every segment is just goddamn amazing. So I'm just gonna stop talking about it and let's go ahead and get into it. Sorry, folks, I'm sucking on a cough drop too. So if you can hear that, I apologize. I'm trying to get through this. So, all right, let's get into it, folks. VHS Halloween. Our movie opens with our wraparound, but as Mike and Don and myself have already said, it just kind of feels like a segment that's just cut up into little pieces that we revisit in between the other larger segments. But basically, this the wraparound is called Diet Phantasma, and it is directed and written by Brian Ferguson. This one basically shows like a scientist who's created a type of soda called Diet Phantasma. Why is it diet? I don't know, but yeah, Diet Phantasma. And basically, it's a very simple premise. They keep bringing in test subjects to try out the different sodas, or the different formulas of the same soda. They're trying to get the formula right. but just awful things happen to almost every test subject that tries this. In our very first segment, we see someone take a sip of the soda, proclaim that, yeah, it tastes pretty good. And then suddenly tentacles come out of the can and wrap around the person's head and literally just, it forces the can into the guy's mouth and down his throat, killing him instantly, which definitely sets up what you're getting with this movie moving forward. I'm just going to take my cough drop out because it's even starting to bother me now. Okay. So that's pretty much all we get of the wraparound to start. And then we go into our first segment, which I believe is called Coochie Coochie Coo. This one is written and directed by Anna Slakovich, right? Yeah, Slokovich. Yep, that's it. In this segment, we see a couple of, kind of shitty girls, probably around 17, 18 years old. They're talking about how this is going to be their last Halloween in their hometown, and they want to have fun. They decide to go out trick-or-treating, but every time they knock on someone's door, someone always says the inevitable question, "Aren't you a little old to be trick-or-treating?" And they always have a smart answer for whoever asks. Along their adventures on trick-or-treating, they end up running into a house that they didn't know was there, almost like the house just appeared out of nowhere. Both of them have no idea whose house it is, that, they've never seen it before, but they decide to walk up to it anyway. They walk up to it, they knock obnoxiously too, like they're knocking and actually yelling at the homeowner, "I know you're home, come on out, blah, blah, blah." I mean, these two chicks are definitely asking for it, if you ask me. As they go to walk away from the house, the front door just suddenly opens and you see nothing but black inside the house. No lights on, no nothing. Suddenly an arm just comes out of the darkness holding a basket of candy and basically beckoning the two girls to come into the house. Now, folks, as a horror fan, I think most of us would know, you stay the fuck away from that house. But of course, these two girls decide, hey, let's get some candy, blah, blah, blah. They walk up to the house, and kind of the leader of the two, the one who's more vocal, she walks up to the door, kind of yelling inside, "Hello." And then suddenly something pulls her into the house, just an invisible force pulls her in. Her friend follows her inside to try to help her. Once inside the house, they start running into these people that aren't normal. Basically, what we're looking at are adult babies. These are adults, full-grown adults. The first one they meet is a female. Then they meet a male who's in diapers. Kind of reminds you of that movie, The Baby, of course. And but the thing is that they're not just acting like babies. It looks like they've been physically transformed to almost look like babies, in the sense that their eyes are bigger and their cheeks are gigantic. Like they have these big chubby cheeks. And then even the way they speak, like it's almost like something happened to their voice box where their voice returns to like a more childlike timbre. So these are adults with big Cupid doll eyes, like almost anime eyes, and big chubby cheeks. It's talking like children, which of course freaks our two protagonists out. But eventually they run into Mama. And this is where the segment starts to feel like Barbarian to me. I'm sure most of you listeners remember Barbarian from a couple of years ago with Alex Skarsgård, or excuse me, Bill Skarsgård and Justin Long, among others. And this movie kind of had the same kind of feel where we see this creature, this very large woman. It's a humanoid creature, yes, but when she takes her robe off, she's almost got like dog or cat nipples. You know how dogs and cats have like 8 nipples? She's got like 6. I don't remember if it was 6 or 8, but she's got a bunch of breasts running down her torso, and they're lactating. Like literally, they're just spitting out milk constantly. Like every time we see her, we see the milk just kind of running down her torso, down to her legs, and her face. Holy shit, she's creepy as hell. Very hard for me to describe her face, but it is fucking creepy. So, of course, she gives chase. She starts chasing these girls around. Eventually, she's able to capture the louder one, kind of the leader of the two, the more vocal one. She's able to capture her and transform her into a child. We don't actually see that, unfortunately, but it looks like if you get any of that woman's milk, like if you accidentally get any of that woman's milk in your system, you start to transform into an adult baby. And I guess that's kind of the gist of this segment, of this, mysterious, terrifying woman who's like 7 or 8 feet tall with 6 to 8 breasts, all lactating at once. It is just, I mean, I can't describe it well enough. I'm not doing it any justice. It's fucking gnarly as hell. And then eventually, the more good girl of the two finds her friend who's been transformed, and then the woman herself, the antagonist, is sitting in a rocking chair, and she's actually feeding the friend, the more vocal friend. And then for some reason, the good girl, I guess she either gets infected somehow with the milk, or maybe this woman has more of a supernatural element than we know, because the good girl ends up just going and sitting right at the feet of the woman on the opposite side of her friend, and she puts her head down on her lap, and then all the other adult babies come in, and it's like, the mom in the rocking chair and all the adult babies on the floor looking into the camera. The antagonist gives one final howl or scream, and that's the end of our segment. So that's the end of Coochie Coochie Coo. Now, after Coochie Coochie Coo, we go back to Diet Phantasma, and we see different. In this segment, we see some different types of kills. We see. I think in this part of it, we see the demon-possessed soda, where we see a woman, I believe. She actually, or a teenager. She's not a woman. She's actually a teenager. By the way, the test subjects are getting younger and younger. So I'm sure you know where we're going with this. As Don and I have already both said, VHS Halloween hates kids. So we see a teenage girl, a blonde, sip of the soda, and then she actually says, "Oh, it tastes pretty good." And the doctor, the guy who's running the experiment behind the one-way mirror, basically says, "Can you go ahead and finish the can?" And she's like, "Okay." And she goes to start finishing the can, and then suddenly the lights go out, they start flickering. We see some smoke entity in the room, and then suddenly the woman's possessed. Her eyes, glaze over white, as we've seen in many demonic possession movies. And she starts speaking in tongues, but eventually her body can't take it, and it just fucking explodes, and literally just blood all over the test area. And that's the end of that part of the walkthrough, of the wraparound. Our next segment, number 2, is going to be the Paco Plaza segment. Now, this segment is, of course, in Spanish, and the title of it is also in Spanish. The title of it is Ut supra sic infra, which means, it's the literal Spanish translation for as above, so below. And if you remember the movie As Above, So Below, which I am a fan of, it might kind of let you know a little bit about what's going on with this one. But like I said, this one I've gotten my notes as The Black Phone meets Talk to Me. The segment starts with the lone survivor of a massacre being interrogated at a police station. The cops are convinced that he's the killer because he's the only survivor. And the guy even not admits that he killed everyone, but he basically says, "It was my fault. It's my fault that they're all dead. Arrest me." The cops obviously don't understand what's happening or what happened, because it's literally just a bunch of bodies in a room and then one survivor for no apparent reason. So what they decide to do is they decide to return to the scene of the crime so that the lone survivor, can try to walk them through what happened. And what's funny is that we get a little bit of parallel editing here, where we see what happened during the crime, during the initial crime, but then it's intercut with scenes of the present that are happening right now. So what's happening is we see a group of people in a mysterious room. Nothing in the room. They're all just kind of standing there wondering what's going on. And then suddenly, out of nowhere, a table and telephone appears in the middle of the room and starts ringing. Now, this telephone is connected to nothing. There are no cables coming out of it, and it's an old-timey phone. It's not like a digital phone by any stretch. Old rotary phone, and it's ringing. Now, everybody there is freaked out because they're on a ghost hunt, and that's what it was. They were on a ghost hunt in this particular location. And obviously, being like, of that age, and it's Halloween, nobody really expected to find anything or see anything supernatural. But suddenly, when this phone just appears out of nowhere and starts ringing, one of the girls is like, no one answer that. No one touch that fucking phone. Don't go anywhere near it. And then our lone survivor basically starts playing around with the girl. He starts walking towards the phone. He starts to reach for it, and the girl's just yelling at him, don't answer it. Don't touch it. Eventually, he picks up the phone, says hello, and then there's silence. Nothing happens. But then suddenly his eyes glaze over white again, as we've seen. So he's very obviously possessed by something. And suddenly everyone in the room starts just getting decimated, just torn apart. And there's some great kills in here. There's only one in particular that I remember because it is fucking spectacular, but it happens at the end of the segment. So we'll wait a little bit. And like I said, so our lone survivor, we see him going around basically killing all of his friends while he's possessed. Then we go back to present day where the police are there at the scene with the lone survivor. And then just like last time, same thing. I skipped a piece. What started this whole thing was a passage written on the wall. And of course, the passage was the title of our segment, Ut supra sic infra, which of course means as above, so below, which they actually translate in the segment. Obviously, the segment's in Spanish, so it's subtitled, but you know what I mean. And then the lone survivor, starts chanting it, as above, so below, as above, so below. He starts saying it over and over, and that's when the phone appears and starts ringing in the middle of the room. I'm sorry, I forgot that little element there. So then when we go back to the present day and the police are there, the police make the guy do the chant again to repeat as above, so below, as above, so below. The guy obviously doesn't want to because he's already been through this shit, but the police obviously are convinced that he's the murderer. And, obviously the guy doesn't want to spend the rest of his life in jail. So he succumbs and he says, all right, fine. He does it. And just like during the original crime scene, telephone appears in the middle of the room, starts ringing. All the police are looking at it like that can't happen. That phone can't ring. It's not plugged into anything. There's literally not even a cable coming out of it. But then one of the police officers, one of the investigators, I should say, she walks up to the phone and the lone survivor is screaming at her, don't answer it, don't touch it, blah, blah, blah. She says, I just want to see what might happen, is I think something along those lines are her exact words. So it almost seems like she's just going to touch the phone. But then in her infinite wisdom, of course, she picks up the phone and answers it. And we get a repeat of the exact same thing. She gets possessed. She starts just decimating everybody in the room. Eventually, the lone survivor is the only one left, the lone survivor from the original crime, plus the woman who is now possessed. And this kill is fucking spectacular. Literally on camera with no cuts, we see the woman's hand yank out one of the right eye of the lone survivor, and it looks great. It's got the optical nerve connected to it and everything. It looks very realistic. And then she does the same thing to the left eye, just yanks it out, and it just, oh my God, it's amazing. Oh, I also forgot to mention a great part of this movie of this segment, excuse me, is when our lone survivor, after he goes back, because apparently he did the same thing to all of the people in the original crime scene where he ripped out all their eyes. But what we didn't know is that he ate them. He actually ate all of their eyes because during the present time, when they're there the second time, he starts puking up eyeballs. And that's literally right after the phone starts ringing. He just starts puking up eyeballs. It's such a great effect. And then, like I said, the segment ends where we actually see the newly possessed woman ripping out the eyes of the lone survivor. And then our segment ends. That's the end of segment number 2, As Above, So Below, written and directed by Paco Plaza. Now, this time we go back to our wraparound again. And let's see what happens this time. Let's just say that there's more experiments.
They conduct more experiments to about the same effect as the previous experiment.
Exactly. I mean, we've got. I think that's what it is. In this segment, there's a subject in there, and they tell him to try the soda. So he reaches for the soda because it's in a can. So he reaches for the soda to open it, but then the soda can opens itself and sprays onto the guy's face and literally just melts his face off. I don't want to say melts. That's probably the wrong word, but it's like the skin disconnects from the tissue. Because when someone else in the room, one of the other test subjects, reaches for his face just peels off like nothing, like easier than a banana would peel. It just comes right off. So whatever this soda did to him basically separated his skin from his flesh, and his skin just came off nice and easy. So yeah, that's another failed experiment of the soda. And of course, the main scientist who's kind of running the experiment just gets more and more upset at his team, at the results. Lord, at this point, you don't know what he's going for. Like we're sitting here thinking that this is just some psycho trying to find creative ways to kill people, but no, he's actually trying to find a formula that will work and that he can sell. All right, so after this, we go to our third segment, which is called, which one is this one? Is this Fun Size? Yes, this is Fun Size. Okay, so the next segment is Fun Size. This one is written and directed by Casper Kelly. In this one, we see once again some kind of older kids, 17, 18, 19 years old, that maybe are a little too old to be trick-or-treating, but they decide to go trick-or-treating. And of course, they're all drunk assholes, douchebags as usual. And they arrive at a mysterious house that has a bowl of candy outside the house. And when they walk up to the bowl, they don't recognize any of the candy, like all the candy, and neither do we as the viewer. Like all the candy has weird names. They're all in generic packaging. Like there's no Reese's peanut butter cups, no Kit Kats, no Snickers. It's literally all just like generic candy. And the guy's like, God, what is up with this? So he literally, and there's a sign on it too that says take one only. And the only is in all caps. So you kind of know where we're going with that. He ends up opening one of the candies and it's a penis. It's literally a chocolate penis, but it's big. It's like the size of an actual penis. He then takes a bite out of it, and the inside, of course, is all white, gooey cream that sprays all over him when he bites it. It's almost like he released the pressure inside the chocolate penis, and it just sprayed and literally it's dripping off his chin. It fucking looks pornographic. It's amazing. And he's like, he's eating it, and he's like, oh, it actually tastes pretty good. Shit, I'm going to take another one. Problem is, when he takes another one, a human hand comes out of the bowl and grabs him and starts pulling him down. Now, all the friends think that this is like a Halloween gag. The thing is that when they look at the table that the candy is on, there's not like a tablecloth or anything. It's just a standard 4-leg table, and there's no one underneath there, but there's still a hand coming out of the candy bowl dragging this guy down. Eventually, he gets dragged down, and then all of his friends all get swallowed up by the candy bowl. The candy bowl actually starts flying around and literally just landing on people and swallowing all of them and taking them to this area that I call, anybody who's ever seen the viral internet videos called the back rooms, it kind of reminded me of that. It's like they were suddenly in the back rooms. There was no furniture, no fixtures. It was just kind of like an empty room. But then suddenly a mysterious figure with a big red candy head shows up. Very similar looking to the Jester, except with a different mask on, if anybody's seen the Jester. And all this guy says is fun size. He just says fun size over and over again, but he says it with such glee and delight that it's almost funny. And literally these people just start getting wrecked. As it turns out, they're inside of some kind of fucked up candy factory. Probably the factory that made all those generic candies that was in the bowl out in the real world. So yeah, people just start getting decimated. One guy gets literally put into a candy machine and chopped up into little pieces. And then the individual little pieces are covered with chocolate, which kind of it actually, there's a revisit later in another segment where somebody pulls, or no, at the end of this segment, somebody else will pull out a piece of candy, unwrap it, and it'll actually be a human finger wrapped in, like, covered in chocolate. It was kind of interesting. Which gives you a little clue about the chocolate covered penis that the guy ate at the beginning of the segment. Ew. Anyway, more and more of the friends keep getting decimated. Guys, this is a painful segment because you are going to watch a penis and balls get cut off and then get chopped in half and then get covered in chocolate. So prepare yourselves, my friends, because I was not. Anyway. Eventually, you know, the friends keep getting picked off by Fun Size, and every time he shows up, another person dies. He has a little toady with him, like a little guy that follows him around, and that guy actually, I think, it kills one of the friends as well. And then finally, the segment ends where one of the girls is actually able to get out of the factory. She gets out of the factory. She's looking around. She's in a parking lot that she doesn't recognize. And then suddenly she turns around and hears Fun Size. And then the guy basically takes his hands and basically claps them on her head and crushes her head. Unfortunately, we don't see it because we're watching it from the camera's eye, which the girl is holding. But we see, like, him clap his hands together, and then an explosion of blood and brain tissue and everything else hits him in the face. And that's the end of that segment. That's Fun Size. Now,
yeah, Fun Size, it reminded me of a haunt at, I think it's either Great America or Not Scary Farm. They had this thing called the Toy Factory, and it was kind of like a satire on like nonstop toys being made that drives them to be like demonic kind of creatures in there, and the kind of like the design of the Fun Size guy, it kind of reminded me of like a similar vibe to it.
Yeah.
So I had a lot of fun with this, and that candy dish effect was really cool. That reminds me, I mean, watching that type of thing, it reminds me of the kind of movies I guess our age group kind of grew up with, where like it was neat little tricks and gimmicks like that when they pull them off on screen, well, they look like just so cool, and much cooler than like if they just generated with like a bunch of CGI, you know, like it just
absolutely,
it feels like there's way more life to it.
Yes, definitely. Oh, 100% agree. So, like I said, that's the end of Fun Size. We go back to our wraparound to Diet Phantasma. This time we have a group of about 4 or 5 test subjects in the room, and basically the main scientist basically says, okay, everybody go ahead and take a sip and let me know what you think. Again, everybody takes a sip and they're like, oh yeah, it tastes pretty good. But then eventually one of the people gets possessed, just like the blonde girl in an earlier segment. But this time, the guy that gets possessed goes around and just decimates the rest of the test subjects that are in the room. Unfortunately, the two-way glass or the two-way mirror gets covered in blood, so we don't actually get to see a lot of what he does. But yeah, it's obviously very juicy what he does. Eventually, after he kills everybody in the room, the scientist is kind of staring at him, almost like hoping that he doesn't die. But then eventually, just like the blonde girl previously, his body just ends up exploding. His body just couldn't take it, and he is dead. And now we are off to our next segment. And here we are, folks. We are at Kid Print. Kid Print is directed and written by Alex Ross Perry. Now, no words that I'm going to be able to say about this segment are going to do it any justice. This is one of the most uncomfortable segments. And like I said, even for somebody like me who's not a parent and someone who actually is okay with kids dying on film, like I have no problem when a movie, decides to kill children on screen. I've never had an issue with it. But this one, it just felt so gratuitous and dirty and just like I felt like I needed a shower after watching this segment. Our segment opens up with basically it's like a video service where Kid Print is the name of the business. And what it is they take videos of kids in case they go missing. So the parents don't have to use like some old picture or whatever. They'll actually have video and audio with the kid's voice, and you'll see like bits of their personality. So it's basically just a lot more accurate on the very off chance that one of those kids goes missing, that they'll be able to use the backup video of Kid Print to give to the police and should help the police in their investigation. Obviously, there is a murder spree going on in this town. It is affecting children and teenagers. Somebody is hunting children. And when I say children, I mean there is no age limit. I think we see like a 5 or 6 year old get decimated in this segment. Basically, the guy who runs Kid Print, I think his name was Tim. The first like half of the segment almost makes it seem like he's the killer. And I was convinced of that. Like he was the first red herring in the segment. And I'm like, oh, of course you're going to be the killer. But no, as it turns out, the killer is someone that he works with. It's his videographer and editor, the person, the guy who's actually editing all of the videos that this guy shoots. And he did it. He's been doing it without Tim's knowledge. So Tim is actually 100% innocent, which I'm totally shocked about, actually. But yeah, like I said, we see videotapes that are presented just like the Kid Print, where the kids are standing in front of the Kid Print background. But this time they're crying, they're screaming. Sometimes they'll be bloody. There'll be blood on their face. And like I said, there was one little girl that's like, couldn't be older than like 5 or 6 years old. And she's just screaming into the camera, let me go home. I want my mommy, which that kind of shit affects me sometimes, So eventually Tim ends up going back to the office because a police officer lets him know that another little girl went missing an hour ago. And it's a girl that they took a video of. So the police officer that's there basically tells him, can you go back to the office, get the backup so that we can, start spreading the word and, getting this information out there about this girl that literally just went missing an hour ago. Of course, Tim agrees because he is a family man himself. He has a wife and 2 daughters. So he goes back to the office. And when he gets there, he starts hearing just very weird audio. He's basically looking for his videographer so that he could get that backup video to the police. But when he walks up to the videographer's editing station, it's just kids on screen just crying and screaming. And there's one older girl, like a teenage girl, that's basically swearing, saying, fuck you, blah, 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 blah. And Tim, the owner of Kid Print, is just looking at all this like, what is going on? I think he basically is starting to put two and two together that his videographer is actually the kid killer in this segment. And then finally, he finds some more videos and he puts them in. And this is where we start to see some of the fucked up shit that this guy's doing. He's basically skinning these kids piece by piece, you know, not like all at once, like in Martyrs. I mean, literally, like he's chopping off like a piece of their back and peeling off the skin. And of course, the kids are screaming and just, you know, begging for their lives and begging for their parents and everything. And the guy, the killer's just laughing the whole time. He's basically trying to comfort the kids as he's ripping their skin off. He's like, you're okay. You're okay. This isn't too bad, right? Right? As the kid is literally writhing in pain, he's like, it's okay. It's not too bad, blah, blah, blah. You know, obviously fucking with the kids. Fortunately, we never actually see him kill, as in finish any of the children. All we see is him skinning them. But eventually we finally see him peel the face off of one of the teenage boys. And again, thankfully it was a teenage boy, not one of the really, really little kids, because I'm not sure if I could have even taken that. But goddamn, like I said, this segment just feels gratuitous as all hell. I mean, the only Halloween element to this segment is that it is Halloween, and basically the police have decided there will be no trick-or-treating. They've stopped trick-or-treating for that year. And what they're doing is they're having an event hosted by the police at the city park, where the police are handing out candy to the kids. And, you know, it's almost like an assembly line type thing, less of a party and more of just an excuse to go get a piece of candy. Anyway, after Tim realizes what's happening, what he's watching, he hears a couple of kids, or he hears a kid downstairs in the basement of his business. He goes down there and he finds a kid down there, basically just tied up, not tied up, just being like held captive in a room. And he's got pieces of his flesh are missing, like a chunk of his arm is missing. Pieces of his skin, I should say. Piece of his back is missing. Like, this guy really likes to peel flesh off the back because he seems to do it to every single one of his victims. Eventually, he hears his videographer. The videographer comes in, and that's when Tim is like, what the fuck are you doing with these kids? I can't fucking believe that you're the one who's been doing all this, blah, blah, blah. Eventually, the killer gets the better of Tim, is able to basically hit him in the head, but not kill him. And I think I know why, because right after that, basically, the killer walks out of the room, leaves Tim on the floor with the boy who's missing pieces of his skin. And then suddenly we hear the killer doing something to a teenage girl in another room. We can hear her voice. I think it's actually the chick who was swearing, who was, you know, telling him to fuck off and blah, blah, blah. So he does something to her, but she ends up getting away from him. Now, we're only hearing this. The whole time the camera is in the basement with Tim and the boy. So basically the girl ends up getting away. Right before she walks into that room, Tim walks up to the boy and says, okay, I got to get you out of here. I don't know what the hell's going on, but I got to get you out of here before he comes back. What ends up happening is the teenage girl runs into the room and says, fuck that guy. That guy's working with them. Obviously, she had no basis to make that claim other than the fact that it was the owner of Kid Print, the business, the actual place where all of these murders are happening. So she starts stabbing Tim in the belly, and then the boy that was already in the room grabs a hammer and just starts smashing Tim's head with a hammer. So literally these two kids, and the camera's right there. The camera that Tim was holding fell to the floor, but of course conveniently landed perfectly so that you could see Tim get killed by these two kids. After they're done killing him, they end up going, they try to leave, but of course the killer is basically waiting for them to leave. We hear the killer basically finish those last two kids off, and then the scene fades to black. When it fades back up, it's the next morning, and basically they have basically figured out, at least in their eyes, that Tim was the killer, because they find the tape where Tim is killed by the two kids. And on the tape, the girl is heard to say, he's working with the other guy, get him, kill him. So that apparently is enough. Apparently the police did no kind of investigation whatsoever. Because I mean, I got a feeling that even a half-assed police investigation would have been able to figure out that Tim was not the killer. But, and obviously the killer himself might have gotten rid of certain tapes so that the police couldn't find them that would incriminate him. So like I said, it's the next morning. The news basically announces that the killer has been found. We see the front of Kid Print basically has been graffitied over, vandalized. Somebody spray painted Kid Killer on the front door. And then we see the reporter, and she interviews the killer, the videographer. And yeah, she starts interviewing him saying, did you have any idea that your boss was like this? And he's like, well, you know, Tim's always been kind of a weird guy. And then the other employees are interviewed, and they say the same thing, that, you know, oh, Tim was kind of a weird guy. He kind of, you know, kind of marched to the beat of his own drum, blah, blah, blah. So they're not surprised. Like basically the common theme is that, oh, we're not surprised that Tim actually turned out to be the killer, even though he was 100% innocent. And then the segment ends with the reporter still interviewing the killer. And basically the interviewer says, so what happens to Kid Print now? And the videographer is like, oh, no, I'm going to continue to run the business for Tim. You know, I'm going to honor the memory of the kids that have been murdered. And then he literally just looks into the camera and smiles. And that's the end of the segment. Like I said, my friends, my words do not do justice to this segment. It is fucked up. It is uncomfortable. It is painful to watch this guy skinning children. And then to actually watch him at the end basically admit on camera that he's going to keep killing anyway. He's not going to stop. Which obviously, once the murders continue, obviously then the police are going to figure out that, oh, maybe Tim wasn't as guilty as we thought he was, blah, blah, blah. But yeah, our segment ends like that, which, like I said, man, if this was a theatrical watch, this segment would have brought down the mood for because it brought me down. After the first two really, really fun segments, you know, As Above, So Below, Coochie Coochie Coo, oh, and Fun Size. So the first three segments are all really fun, still gory, still scary, but just more fun, like what we're used to from VHS. This segment, definitely more like Safe Haven, where it's like an uncomfortable segment that you're not quite prepared for going into it. What's funny is I had already heard about some of the controversy of this segment before I watched the movie. I didn't get a chance to watch it on Friday. I ended up watching it on Saturday after I got out of work. And I basically was just thinking, oh, this is all hyperbole, you know, people are just exaggerating because they're soft or whatever. But I'm sitting there watching the segment like, holy shit. Like Alex Ross Perry, like, I don't know if I should applaud you or call the police on you, because this segment is so twisted. So, all right, let's get past Kid Print. We're going back to Diet Phantasma for the second to last time. This time we see a single little girl. Yes, my friends, a little girl. Couldn't be more than 6, 7, 8 years old. She's in the test room, and again, the scientist asks her to take a sip. She takes a sip of the soda, says that it tastes really good. And again, the scientist basically asks her, can you go ahead and finish the soda, and we'll give you another one if you really like it? And the girl's like, oh, yeah. So the girl literally chugs the first can, finishes it completely, and nothing happens. So the scientist starts getting mad at his team, thinking that they lowered the dosage of the serum too much. Obviously, one of his assistants says, well, because it's such a little girl, we lowered the dose because, you know, I mean, look what the regular dose was doing to adults. Imagine what it would do to a child. So they lowered the dose. But then the little girl opens the second can and she starts drinking out of the second can. And then suddenly we start to see the same thing that happened with the first two people that got possessed. You know, we see the lights flickering, we see the smoke effect inside of the test room. But this time, the little girl doesn't die. Her eyes gloss over white, and she's just staring into the two-way mirror. She obviously can see, you know, everybody on the other side. Eventually, the main scientist starts talking to her and says, how do you feel? And then in a voice that's not the little girl's, a voice says, I feel really good, or something along those lines. Maybe not exactly. And then the scientist just asks, so what's your favorite soda? And the voice just goes, Diet Phantasma. And then it just fades to black after the scientist smiles. So it seems like he's getting closer to the formula that he's looking for. And then that leads us into our final segment of the movie called Home Haunt. This one is written by Michelle Pitt and directed by R.H. Norman. Now, with Home Haunt, it opens up, fairly simply. We see a dad and his son preparing their house for a haunt. The kid's like maybe 10, 11 years old, the boy. And they're all into it. That obviously dad is into it. The whole family's into it. Mom's into it. The boy is into it. He actually plays Igor, the assistant to his dad's kind of Dr. Frankenstein character. And they kind of show the haunt, from this particular year. It's very basic. I mean, how scary can a home haunt really be? But, for whatever it's worth, I thought it was actually pretty decent looking for a home haunt, something that you don't have to pay for, that you just go check out, for 5 minutes of scary fun. And that's it. Now now there's a time jump. We jump ahead 10 years. The boy is now a teenager. He's in high school and he wants nothing to do with Halloween. And the reason is because all of the kids at his school over the last bunch of years have actually made fun of him for being, Dr. Mortis's assistant, Igor Mortis, I think they call him. The name of the house is Dr. Mortis's House of Horror. So like I said, the kid just doesn't want anything to do with it anymore. He's pissed off that he keeps getting made fun of by the local kids because they all go to the haunt every year. And of course, he plays Igor every year. So he basically puts his foot down and says, I don't want to do it anymore. That's it. I'm done. The dad, who we find out is a stepdad at this point, not the kid's actual dad, goes to the mom and says, can you talk to him? Like, I don't know what the hell's going on. The ignorance of this guy is so dumb. Like, does he not understand that kids grow up? Like, an 8-year-old kid is not going to have the same likes as a 16-year-old kid. It's just that fucking simple. But apparently dad can't wrap his head around somebody growing up and, changing. So go figure. He asks mom to talk him into getting into it. Somehow mom bribes the boy into doing it one last time. So, the boy basically says, okay, I'll do it. Mom is a better briber than you are. So let's just go. They end up going to a secondhand shop to try to find, just some scary stuff, skeletons and just stuff that'll work in the haunt. While they're there, the dad runs into a room that says staff only. Do not enter. But the door is not closed. It's just like a velvet rope blocking the room. But dad looks inside the room. He pokes his head inside and he sees some pretty cool stuff, like stuff that could potentially work well in his haunt. And he finds a record just called Sounds of Horror, I think was the name of it. Something along, it was one of those generic, or at least that's what it looked like. It looked like one of those just generic Halloween special effects records, sound effects records that just plays like scary music and scary sound effects, blah, blah, blah. And it looks old. It looks vintage as hell. The dad sees it And rather than ask if he could buy it, he just fucking takes it. He steals it. He puts it in his bag and just takes it. So yeah, dad is just a great fucking example in this segment. Anyway, it is now Halloween night and the house is prepared. And basically what they do is every year they videotape the first group of people that goes through the haunt. They call it the first walkthrough. So basically Igor or our kid, the son, is holding the camera while the first group of people walk through the haunt. Now, what's funny is that one of the people in line to go into the haunt is Rick fucking Baker. Yes, the special effects fucking master, Rick Baker, with his unmistakable, platinum white ponytail. Is in line and he hates it. He's just like, shut up. He keeps telling the dad, to shut up. And the dad is like, why do you come here every year if you're just going to be an asshole? And Rick Baker's like, I just want to see how shitty it is so that I can tell you all year how shitty your haunt is. So yeah, Rick Baker plays an absolute asshole in this segment. I really hope he's not that much of an asshole in real life, but yeah, he's literally just a contrarian who's just at every turn saying that looks fucking stupid. That looks fucking stupid. Now, it's not lost on me that a special effects master is in a home haunt calling the effects stupid looking, because to him, they probably are, but most people wouldn't be as vocal about it as this guy is. Eventually, they get into a room. They get into Dr. Mortis's lab. And in Dr. Mortis's lab is where they play the record. And basically, they play the record and like things start happening, like the lights start flickering. It starts getting windy inside of the house. And basically they lose power for a second, but then the power comes back on. Everybody seems okay. So the dad is like, okay, let's just move on to the next room of the haunt. Now, the next room of the haunt is the ghost room, where dad would usually have like sheets set up that would fly around the room. Well, after Rick Baker and his wife walk into the room, he starts talking shit about, what's going on in this room. There's nothing happening. Suddenly, the sheets that represent the ghosts all come to life and they start flying around the room. Dad, as Dr. Mortis, is like, this isn't my effect. I don't know what's going on. Of course, Rick Baker doesn't believe him and is calling him an asshole and wasting his time and blah, blah, blah. Eventually, one of the sheets literally wraps itself around Rick Baker and pops his fucking head so that blood is just gushing out of the sheet. So that's the first kill of the segment. Fucking Rick Baker is the first kill. That's great. More and more people start getting picked off by the sheets. They're literally just flying around on their own. Not necessarily like there's a ghost underneath the way that we would have seen in like classic cinema. They're literally just like flying around like they're being pulled from a certain point and just flying around the room. But yeah, we see one of the sheets grab one of the girls and just kind of, I think it snaps her neck or something, if I remember correctly. Basically everything is going fucked up. If you haven't figured it out by now, basically by them playing that record, it made all of the effects and the props and everything else in the haunt come to life and become real. Which it'll leave us with a pretty cool ending, which we'll get to here in a little bit. At that point, they go into the execution room. And of course, when they walk in there, there is an actual executioner. The executioner statue that they had in there came to life, and he's actually chopping up somebody. At one point, Rick Baker's wife starts yelling at the executioner, thinking that, he's just part of the effect. But then the executioner kicks her, knocks her to the ground, and then splits her fucking head in two with this giant axe, the axe that he uses to behead people. Eventually, dad and mom and some of the other people start fighting the executioner. Suddenly, mom, the badass that she fucking is, how she married such a fucking ineffectual douchebag is beyond me. But badass mom picks up the axe, buries it into the executioner's midsection, And when she pulls it out, his intestines come out. He's basically trying to grab his intestines and put them back in his torso, and he falls to his knees, and then mom unceremoniously cuts his fucking head off, which I literally applauded in my living room. I'm like, finally, a mom who knows what needs to be done. Awesome. And she fucking did it. At this point, they go to the last room, or all that's left in the haunt is the last room. And in that room, there's something, and they're all scared of it. They don't want to go in there because they know what's in there. And they keep saying, well, she's in there. She's in there. I don't want to go in there. She's in there. At this point, besides the 3 family members, there's still 2 girls with them. One of the girls just freaks out and just runs into the room. And we hear her screams. And then they run, and then the rest of the survivors all run into that room, and the she that they're talking about is a fucking witch. There's an actual witch inside the room, and when they walk into the room, the first girl that ran into the room like an idiot had a little sister with her that she just abandoned, by the way. Not a cool big sister, literally just tries to escape and abandons her little sister. Well, when they walk into the witch room, the little girl is literally in the pot boiling. She's in the witch's cauldron, and she's boiled her so much that her face is fucking fallen off, and her hands are basically just bones. Like, somehow instantly the little girl, and yeah, I do mean little girl. Oh, I forgot a kill in this movie too. In the zombie room. That's right. I skipped the zombie room. They fucking cut a little kid in half. I'm not exaggerating, folks. Literally a bunch of zombies come out of the it's like a morgue, not a morgue, like a mausoleum. It's like a mausoleum room. And suddenly zombies start coming out of all the prop coffins that they've got in the room. 4 of the zombies grab this fat kid that's, been part of the group, and they literally pull at him until we see his, literally right at his shoulder, his torso just splits into 2. Fucking great. Like I said, VHS Halloween hates kids, man. So back to the witch room, which, like I said, is the final room of the haunt. We see the little girl boiling in the pot, another image that'll stick with you. And then we see the witch start to attack people, start to attack the dad, she basically hits the dad, which knocks him into another room. But then they realize that, the room that they're in is actually outside, like the door opened. Somehow when the witch hit the dad hit the door, which opened to the outside. So, and by the way, I forgot to mention that they were trapped in this. Once they played the record, they couldn't go backwards in the haunt. They had to go forward. It was the only way they could go. So at this point, the witch is attacking the dad. The door opens. The family ends up escaping from their own home. But then what we see is the witch kills the boy who didn't want any part of this to begin with. And she takes his camera. She actually takes his camera and she flies out of the house on her broom. She's literally flying with the kid's camera. So we have the first person view of the witch holding the camera as she's flying through this town. We see her fly by kids and basically just, she swipes at one kid and rips his face off. She goes up to one little girl, grabs her by the neck, and does the Sub-Zero, the Mortal Kombat Sub-Zero execution, or the fatality, where he pulls the girl's head out and her spine follows with it. Oh, fuck, dude. This is such a great kill. And then the last image of this segment is the facade of the house. The facade was actually set up to look like a giant demon, where the door to the House of Horrors was the demon's mouth. Well, suddenly we see the facade, we see the eyes of the facade start moving around, and we see these 2 giant green hands come out of the house, and it looks like something is about to come out, but then it cuts off right there, and that's the end of our final segment. Now we go back to basically the credits start to roll, and then there is a mid-credit scene, and it's basically a commercial for Diet Phantasma. And basically, they're advertising it as the soda with actual ghosts inside. And the little girl who actually survived all the tests, she's in the commercial and she's like, I love Diet Phantasma. It makes me feel great. And that's the end of that segment, which, of course, then the rest of the credits play. And that's it. No post-credit scene. And my friends, I assure you that I did not do this movie justice. I doubt anyone who hasn't seen the movie is still with us. But if you haven't seen it and you actually did listen to my walkthrough, watch the movie anyway. I cannot put into words how fucking fun, how gory, how funny, how disturbing in one segment this movie actually is. Like, I literally, all I can say is bravo to the filmmakers that were all involved in this one. VHS hit an actual home run. I mean, like I said, the most consistently solid entry in the franchise. Every single segment, including the wraparound, are all fun and entertaining. Like I said, I'm actually in awe, because I never in a million years would think that the 7th or 8th entry in this franchise would potentially be one of the best. But at the same time, they embrace the Halloween season for the first time. And obviously, Halloween and horror go together like peanut butter and jelly. So, of course, it was inevitable that the VHS franchise would go here. And I am so fucking glad that they did, because this movie is amazing, my friends. As I said earlier, if you have access to a Shudder account, watch this fucking movie and watch it before Halloween. Like Mike was saying, I mean, obviously we all have our favorites that we watch on Halloween Day, you know, the standards of like, you know, Halloween 78, Trick or Treat, stuff like that. But my trifecta on Halloween Day was always Halloween 78, Trick or Treat, and the WNUF Halloween special. I may replace the WNUF Halloween special with VHS Halloween moving forward, because, like I said, this thing really embraces the season. It embraces the holiday. It embraces all of the lore of it. It just, my God, it's just amazing. So, just for the sake of not going any longer than we already have, I'm going to go ahead and shut up and turn the mic back over to our fearless host, Mr. Mike Merriman, to put a bow on this episode. Back to you, Mike.
Okay. Yeah. VHS Halloween. Excellent.
Fingers crossed. Fingers crossed for Halloween Christmas next.
Yeah. If they do the usual thing and skip over VHS Thanksgiving, then we'll go to VHS.
I guess Thanksgiving could be good too. Yeah,
maybe
that's true.
Or they could really turn things sideways and go VHS Hanukkah and get something. That'd be funny.
VHS Ramadan.
Yeah.
Oh,
cool.
man.
All right. Well, with that said, that's going to wrap up our discussion on VHS Halloween and this episode. Venom, anything new to report for people to listen to?
Unfortunately, nothing new from the last time we spoke. Creature Comforts episode 41 is still our latest episode there. Unfortunately, the Crystal Lake gift shop hasn't really gotten together. I doubt it's going to happen in October because of all of our schedules, but hopefully in November, we'll be able to start working on episode 10 of the Crystal Lake gift shop and get back to our retrospective of the original Friday the 13th series from 1987. Otherwise, that's really it for me. Not, just working and fighting COVID. That's about it.
Okay, how about you, Don?
Yeah, not much. Just looking forward to getting back for the Creature Comforts. I think we've got we've got the episode recorded. I think we're waiting on a recording date for the next one, since
Right.
we already know what that one is. So yeah, I think that's the only thing I've actually got.
Yeah, sorry, folks. My brain is in a fog. Yes, we did record episode 42. I am in the process of editing it right now. Obviously, with me fighting COVID and working about 55 hours a week, it might take a little bit longer to get out. I am off this Wednesday, so I'm hoping, fingers crossed, that if I get over this sickness, I can just go ahead and edit that show on Wednesday and get it out there so that we can go ahead and record our actual October episode, since this is technically the September episode that's going to be late again. But yeah, looking forward to releasing that episode and then recording episode 43, hopefully, fingers crossed, before the end of the month. So, yep, that's it.
All right, cool. As far as what else, episode 70 of the main show is recorded. I think I mentioned on the last episode that this past weekend would have been the normal time I would have edited it and got it out, but like I mentioned at the beginning, I was gone pretty much all day Thursday to Sunday. So there's a chance I might get to it before the weekend or at least start, but it should definitely be ready to go by the end of this upcoming weekend. So, uh, do we have any theatrical releases coming this week, you know?
Ooh, not actually sure. I'd have to look. I'm looking now.
You would think every weekend on October would have like at least one horror movie hitting the theater.
That's what I thought. Yeah, that's what I would have thought.
If by chance there isn't, I will be spending my theater time on like classics because Regal's doing like 31 days in October of like a different horror classic every day. So
yeah, AMC's doing it too. This Friday is Friday the 13th. The original is
nice.
going to be in theaters.
They just showed Friday the 13th 3 in 3D here, but it was on one of the nights I went to Aftershock. Otherwise, I probably would have gone.
Yeah. As I'm looking at the AMC app, I don't actually see a movie opening this week. Oh, Battle Royale, the 25th anniversary of Battle Royale. Oh, there's Trick or Treat. There's Candyman. Yeah, it looks like AMC is doing the same thing with all the classic horror in theaters. Ooh, I've never seen Candyman in theaters. I might have to go see that. But yeah, it does not look like we have anything in theaters this week. So next week we have The Black Phone 2. And the week after that, we've got Shelby Oaks, which I'm looking forward to because I actually know the filmmaker, the writer director Chris Stuckman, who has one of my favorite YouTube channels for movie reviews is Chris Stuckman. So I'm excited. That's going to be another found footage movie. So
yeah, I think Good Boy had screenings here this weekend too. Of course,
yeah, I saw Good Boy.
I was out.
Yeah, I saw Good Boy and Bone Lake this weekend.
I know. At least Good Boy does hit the theater. I mean, excuse me, hit Shudder. I think sometime later this year, so I'll still be able to see it.
And it's a quick watch. It's only an hour and 15 minutes, so it's pretty awesome.
Cool.
And it's actually good. I did like it. I hated Bone Lake. I won't get into why. I just hated all the characters in it, but I'll leave that alone. Thankfully, we didn't pick Bone Lake.
I had so much viral advertising for Bone Lake, and then just to hear that it's getting pretty bad. Yeah. I'm like, man.
The funny thing is that I heard a lot of people say that they actually like the ending. I don't know. I mean, the second half is better than the first half, but the first half is so insufferable that you might not even make it to the second half. It's just, another one of these shitty relationship movies that, devolves into a horror situation and blah, 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 blah.
Mm-hmm.
I missed out. What was the third movie that opened this weekend?
Coyotes.
Coyotes, the one that I wanted to watch the most too. So let's hope. Hopefully that'll hit VOD sooner than later. And actually, if that's still in theaters, maybe that'll be our movie next week. Who knows? I don't know if it's playing. Yeah, I mean, I've heard great things about it, so I'd be down to talk about it.
Sure.
Yeah, we'll have to see.
All right. Well, with that said, let's say bye to our listeners.
Later.
Fuck them kids.
Give me candy.
Seriously.